Beyond the reinforced crystal dome of Xantara Prime, the infinite abyss of space unfurled a tapestry of countless stars shimmering against the velvet void, a humbling reminder of humanity's fleeting presence in the cosmos. The station itself was a triumph of ingenuity and interstellar diplomacy, a neutral haven where dozens of species converged to forge treaties, carve trade routes, and on rare occasions revel in the fragile unity of disparate worlds. Jackson Rael adjusted his crisp navy blue technician jumpsuit, brushing a faint smudge from the human Concord insignia emblazoned on his chest. As a low-ranking communications technician, his days revolved around ensuring the seamless operation of translation systems during high-stakes diplomatic summits. It wasn't a role draped in glory, but it paid well and granted him a rare privilege, a front-row seat to the unfolding of galactic history. Communications check on Nexus 7 requested the station's sleek AI intoned through Jackson's earpiece, its voice crisp and mechanical. Repeat, communications check on Nexus 7 requested. Jackson sighed, glancing at his schedule. His lunch break, now a distant dream. Acknowledged, he muttered, snatching his toolkit. As he navigated toward Nexus 7, the corridors of Xantara Prime gleamed with opulent precision. Suspended crystal walkways arched over lush gardens of alien flora, their bioluminescent hues casting soft glows across the station's massive glass domes. The central administrative sector housed envoys from over 30 worlds, each dome meticulously calibrated to mimic their native atmospheres and gravities. Jackson passed through 3 security checkpoints, each more stringent than the last, before reaching Nexus 7, the domain of the Xantari delegation, newcomers to the galactic stage. The Xantari were striking humanoids, tall and graceful, their iridescent skins shimmering with colors that danced in sync with their emotions. Their mastery of bioengineering made them coveted allies, but it was their crystalline appendages, elegant, prismatic structures extending from their lower backs, that defined them. These served as both status symbols and, rumor had it, empathic conduits. As Jackson stepped into Nexus 7, the gravity softened, lightening his steps. The air carried a faint tang of ozone laced with a curious hint of cinnamon. A security drone whirred near the entrance, its scanners sweeping over his credentials before it glided away. Human technician approved it, chirped in a clipped tone. The central chamber was deserted save for a lone figure standing by the sweeping curved viewport. Her back was to him, but the violet crystalline appendage caught the starlight, refracting it into mesmerizing cascades of color. This was no ordinary Xantari. It was Matriarch Kalis, leader of the delegation, and whispered to be the heir to Xantara's planetary throne. Jackson cleared his throat, his voice tentative. "Excuse me, Matriarch. I'm here to inspect the communication systems." She turned, her skin rippling from a serene blue to a startled yellow before settling into a regal purple. "Proceed," she said, her voice a melodic hum despite the translator's mediation. "I am reviewing proposals for tomorrow's summit." Jackson offered a respectful nod and moved to the central console, his fingers dancing over the controls as he ran diagnostics on the translation matrix, scanning for interference. The silence stretched heavy with her presence. He could feel her gaze and unspoken weight. "You're new," she said at last, her tone curious. "I haven't seen you in this sector before." "I usually work in the human sector," Jackson replied, keeping his eyes on the console. "I'm covering for technician Lori today." "I see," Kalis murmured. Her crystalline appendage swayed gently, catching the light of a nearby star, its violet hues deepening to a radiant amethyst that pulsed with an inner glow. Jackson completed the diagnostics, satisfied with the system's flawless performance. He stood gathering his tools and made the fatal mistake of meeting her gaze. Matriarch Kalis was breathtaking, her features sharp yet harmonious. Her eyes vast pools of star-flecked light like galaxies captured in miniature. But it was her appendage that drew him again, moving with a grace that seemed almost alive. Without thinking, he flashed a grin and said, "Nice tail." The words escaped before he could stop them, and the air itself seemed to freeze. Kalis's skin blazed a brilliant gold, and the nearby security drone emitted a flurry of urgent beeps, its lights flashing in alarm. Her galaxy-filled eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, Jackson feared he'd committed an unforgivable offense, one that might see him jettisoned into the void. Instead, her lips curved into a subtle, enigmatic smile. "I accept your proposal, Terran Jackson Rael," she said, her voice calm as if discussing a mundane trade agreement. Jackson blinked, his mind reeling. "My what?" "Your marriage proposal." she replied, serene and unshaken. By our sacred customs directly praising a matriarch's residence, appendage constitutes a formal request for union. The drone was now flanked by two others, their formation almost ceremonial, as if bearing witness to a sacred rite. There's been a mistake, Jackson stammered, his heart pounding. As per Zentari Diplomatic Code, Section 371, Paragraph 12, the nearest drone intoned its voice cold and authoritative. The declaration has been recorded and acknowledged. The ritual bonding period of 7 planetary rotations begins immediately. Jackson felt the blood drain from his face, his knees weak. 7 rotations? You mean days? We're married for a week, not precisely married, Kalis corrected her, skin settling into a warm rose gold that suggested quiet delight. We enter a verification period, after which a permanent union may be forged or dissolved. For the next 7 days, you will partake in sacred bonding rituals to assess our compatibility. A second drone projected a holographic document, its shimmering text unfurling in the air between them. Temporary union status has been filed with the Xantara Prime Diplomatic Registry, it declared. Notification has been sent to your superiors, Technician Rael. Jackson's hand instinctively reached for his communicator, his mind a storm of disbelief. He was a nobody, a tech worker who fixed translation matrices and occasionally wrestled with faulty door circuits. Now, because of a careless compliment, he was betrothed to one of the quadrant's most powerful diplomats. I'm so sorry, he tried again, his voice unsteady. This is a misunderstanding. On Earth, commenting on someone's appendage doesn't mean a marriage proposal. Kalis's skin darkened briefly, a shadow of displeasure crossing her features. Are you suggesting you spoke without understanding, that you would offer such an intimate remark carelessly? Her tone carried a dangerous edge sharp enough to cut through the diplomatic veneer. Jackson swallowed hard, acutely aware of the precipice he balanced on. To spurn a matriarch now could fracture relations between Earth and Xantara, whose resource-rich planets were vital to the human concord. No, of course not, he said quickly, forcing calm into his voice. I'm honored, just surprised. Her skin softened to a lighter hue, her gaze piercing, yet intrigued. As am I, she admitted, stepping closer, her galaxy-filled eyes studying him. It is rare for a matriarch to receive a proposal from one of such modest station. Yet our ancient texts speak of unions that defy hierarchy. Perhaps this is the cosmos weaving its will. A third drone glided forward, its voice firm. The acceptance ceremony must commence within the hour. Prepare yourself, Technician Rael. Jackson nodded numbly, his mind racing for an escape that refused to materialize. I anticipate our bonding period, Kalis said, her crystalline appendage swaying with what Jackson now recognized as eager anticipation, casting fleeting prisms across the chamber. It has been many cycles since I partook in the sacred rituals. As she glided from the room, her appendage trailing light like a comet's tail, Jackson fumbled for his communicator. Corin, he whispered urgently when the connection opened, I think I just accidentally got engaged to the Xantari matriarch. A long silence followed before his supervisor's incredulous voice crackled through. What within the hour, Jackson stood in a preparation chamber. Its walls pulsing with soft bioluminescence, the air thick with a sweet, heady aroma that seemed to blur the edges of reality. A Xantari attendant, marked by a shorter crystalline appendage and skin tinged with azure, circled Jackson, adjusting a ceremonial garment that felt alive against his skin. This attire honors both traditions, the attendant, Varin explained, securing a clasp of living metal that warmed and molded itself to Jackson's frame. The outer layer reflects your human heritage. The inner weave incorporates Xantari resonance fibers. Jackson stood rigid, grappling with the whirlwind of events sparked by his ill-fated compliment. Corin had been no help, merely advising him to play along until diplomatic channels could untangle the mess. Ambassador Lin, he'd learned, was in emergency talks to address the situation. So this acceptance ceremony, Jackson ventured, his voice tinged with unease. What does it entail? Vorin's skin flickered with what might have been amusement. You will publicly affirm your intent to bond with our matriarch. She will present the first symbolic gift. It's straightforward. Straightforward, Jackson thought bitterly. Just a public vow to marry one of the quadrant's most formidable figures, all because he'd admired her appendage. The chamber doors parted, revealing a grand hall teeming with Xantari officials, and to Jackson's dismay, members of the Human Concord's diplomatic corps. Ambassador Lin stood near the front, her face an unreadable mask. Matriarch Kalis awaited at the chamber's heart, resplendent in ceremonial robes that amplified the radiance of her crystalline appendage, casting prismatic beams across the room. Guided by Voron, Jackson approached, noting the intricate patterns rippling across Kalis's skin. Mathematical sequences he'd learned akin to Zantari calligraphy. The hall fell silent as he took his place opposite her. A hovering drone positioned itself between them, its core opening to reveal a shimmering pool of liquid light. The joining of paths begins with acknowledgement, intoned an elderly Zantari, his triple-branched crystalline appendage gleaming with age and authority. Speak your intention, Terran Jackson Rael. The weight of countless eyes pressed against him, and somewhere in the crowd, Corrin's pointed throat clearing echoed. Diplomacy, resource planets, no incidents. I, Jackson Rael. He began, his voice steadier than he felt, acknowledged my proposal to Matriarch Kalis of Zantara. He paused, then added a flourish he hoped would resonate. May our paths weave in harmony beneath the eternal stars. A ripple of approval stirred among the Zantari delegates, their skins shimmering in response. Kalis's own skin flashed a fleeting gold, then returned to its ceremonial patterns. The acknowledgement is heard and recorded, the elder declared. Matriarch Kalis, present the first gift of bonding. Kalis stepped forward, her movements fluid as starlight, and drew from her robes a small gleaming object. As she offered it to Jackson, he saw it was a ring reminiscent of Earth's wedding bands, yet alien in its shifting liquid solid form. This alloy, she said, her voice resonant in the vast chamber, blends elements of our worlds, human titanium and Zantari crystalline essence. It will attune to your biorhythms. Jackson accepted the ring, its warmth startling as he slipped it onto his finger. The material shimmered, briefly liquefying before solidifying in a perfect fit, pulsing faintly in rhythm with his heartbeat. The first bond is forged, the elder proclaimed. The verification period of 7 rotations has begun. As the ceremony concluded, the crowd dispersed, though many lingered, casting curious glances at the improbable pair. Jackson stood rooted, staring at the ring, its soft glow intensifying as Kalis drew near. Ambassador Lin approached, her professional smile a thin veneer. Technician Rael, she murmured, her voice low and measured. Technician Rael, Ambassador Lin said, her voice a low, steely murmur. A word. Jackson followed her to a shadowed corner of the grand chamber, the hum of dispersing delegates fading behind them. The moment they were beyond earshot, her diplomatic smile vanished, replaced by a glare sharp enough to cut through the station's reinforced hull. Do you have any idea what you've unleashed? She hissed, her words laced with barely restrained fury. The Zantari Human Concord Treaty is at a knife's edge. We cannot afford complications, not now. It was an accident, Jackson protested, his voice tight with defensiveness. I didn't know their cultural protocols. Exactly why technicians should stick to circuits, and Code Lin snapped, her tone colder than the void outside. But here we are. The diplomatic corps is treating this as a priority crisis. Until we resolve it, you will participate in these rituals without a whisper of complaint. For a week, Jackson asked, grasping for clarity. For as long as it takes, she said, her eyes narrowing to slits. Consider it your duty to interstellar peace. Before Jackson could muster a response, a Zantari official approached, his skin shimmering with formal hues. The Verification Council awaits the bonded pair. The official announced, his voice resonant with authority. Please follow. Ambassador Lin stepped back, her message delivered like a missile. Good luck, Technician Rael, she said, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. Try not to spark an interstellar war. The Verification Council convened in a semicircular chamber, its walls aglow with faint pulsing light. 7 elder Zantari presided, their intricate branching crystalline appendages gleaming with the weight of age and wisdom. Jackson and Kalis stood on a platform that emitted a soft scanning radiance, its hum vibrating through their bones. This council exists to verify the authenticity of intent. The central elder intoned, his voice echoing like a sacred hymn. Though the proposal is accepted, we must ensure both parties approach this union with true mindfulness. Jackson shifted, unease coiling in his gut. Mindfulness was the last thing on his mind when he'd complimented her appendage. The scan will assess your biological compatibility and psychological resonance, the elder continued. Remain still. The platform's light intensified, shifting through a spectrum of colors as it enveloped them. A tingling sensation prickled across Jackson's skin, intrusive yet oddly soothing, like a whisper from the cosmos itself. Beside him, Kayla stood serene, her iridescent skin cycling through hues too swift for him to decipher. After several minutes, the light dimmed, and the elders leaned together, their crystalline appendages brushing in what seemed a silent tactile communion. The central elder spoke again, his tone laced with intrigue. Most fascinating, he said, his galaxy-filled eyes narrowing. Jackson's heart plummeted had they sensed his unintentional deception, but the elder's next words caught him off guard. Your resonance patterns reveal extraordinary harmony for beings of such disparate origins. This bond holds potential far beyond mere diplomatic convenience. Kalis' skin flashed a fleeting burst of surprise before settling into a warm rose hue. Our ancient texts speak of rare cross-species compatibilities, she said, her voice soft yet resonant. Perhaps this is such a moment. The elder nodded, his appendage swaying approvingly. The council sanctions the continuation of the verification period. Tomorrow you will partake in the symbiotic energy ritual. As they left the chamber, Jackson found his voice. What's this symbiotic energy ritual? Kalis' lips curved into a smile he was beginning to recognize, subtle yet warm with alien charm. It is an exchange of life energies, she said, her tone hinting at intimacy. Quite profound by the standards of most species. Jackson swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. And what does it involve exactly? You will understand through experience, she replied, her galaxy eyes glinting enigmatically. For now, rest. Your quarters have been reassigned to the diplomatic wing adjacent to mine. My quarters have been what Jackson stopped mid-step, his voice rising. I can't just move. I have duties, responsibilities. Already addressed, Kayla said smoothly, unruffled. Your supervisor, Korn, has reassigned your tasks for the verification period. Your primary duty now is to fulfill the ritual obligations. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed to captivate Kalis. Her eyes followed the motion, her crystalline appendage swaying slightly, catching the starlight. This is all moving too fast, Jackson said, struggling to anchor himself in the whirlwind. On Earth, we take time to know someone before... All this? Kalis tilted her head, considering. A sensible custom, she mused. Perhaps we should spend this evening sharing knowledge, a cultural exchange to deepen our understanding. And so Jackson found himself dining with the Xantari matriarch in her private suite, a sprawling chamber with panoramic views of the Agro Ring's verdant expanse and the starfield beyond. The furniture was sparse yet exquisite, seemingly grown from organic materials rather than forged. They sat at a low, translucent table, sampling dishes from their respective worlds. Jackson was surprised to find Xantari cuisine strangely palatable, its textures unfamiliar but intriguing. Your species has a curious approach to sustenance, Kalis observed, watching him chew a bite of Terran protein mash. Breaking down nutrients mechanically seems inefficient. Jackson grinned despite himself. Compared to what Xantari absorption, she replied, pressing her palm to a gelatinous violet substance. It dissolved into her skin as if absorbed by the cosmos itself. Direct molecular integration. Efficient, sure, Jackson conceded, but you miss the joy of taste. We perceive molecular compositions directly. She countered, her skin shimmering with curiosity. Each particle resonates uniquely. Is that not akin to your concept of taste? The conversation flowed effortlessly, bridging the chasm between their worlds. They spoke of their planet's histories, their education systems, and glimpses of their personal lives. Jackson opened up about his childhood in the Arctic Restoration Zone, where his parents toiled to reverse Earth's climate scars. Kayla shared memories of her youth in the crystal groves of Xantara, where young Xantari nurtured their resonance appendages under the glow of twin moons. The crystalline structures there form naturally, she said, her appendage swaying with wistful grace. Unlike these, she gestured to her own, which are bioengineered, shaped by lineage and tradition. So your resonance appendage, Jackson caught himself, it's artificial. Semi-organic, she corrected, her tone gentle. It grows from us guided by genetic templates. Mine reflects my role as matriarch. Her eyes gleamed with curiosity. You find it aesthetically pleasing? Jackson's face warmed, a flush creeping up his neck. I mean, yeah, it's beautiful, he admitted, stumbling over his words. The way it catches the light, it's mesmerizing. Kalis's skin shimmered with what he now knew was pleasure, a radiant glow that felt like a shared secret. "Thank you," she said. "It is exceptional among my people, though few beyond Zentari ever remark on it." Now I know why, Jackson said with a nervous chuckle, the weight of his earlier mistake lingering. Kalis tilted her head, her expression softening. "Your unintended proposal has created an extraordinary situation, one that may prove fortuitous. The Verification Council rarely sees such compatibility across species." "What happens after the 7 days?" Jackson asked cautiously. "If compatibility is confirmed, we may formalize the union," Kalis explained. "If not, a dissolution ceremony frees both parties to seek other paths." "Is there a way to speed this up?" Jackson ventured, his voice hesitant. "If we realize sooner that we're not compatible." Kalis's skin darkened briefly, a flicker of displeasure. "You wish to end this already?" "No," he said quickly, backtracking. "I'm just trying to understand the options." Her skin softened, her gaze searching his. "The 7-day period is sacred," she said. "It cannot be abbreviated. But rest assured the verification is ceremonial, not binding until the final day." Relief washed over him. A week of alien rituals he could manage, especially if it meant avoiding a diplomatic catastrophe. And if he were honest, time with Kalis wasn't a burden. She was captivating, intelligent, enigmatic, and beautiful in her otherworldly way. As if sensing his thoughts, Kalis rose with fluid grace. "It grows late by station time," she said. "You should rest for tomorrow's ritual." Jackson stood, exhaustion settling into his bones after the day's chaos. "Thank you for dinner," he said, "and for explaining all this." "It's a lot." "As it is for me," Kalis admitted, her voice softer now. "The verification period is traditionally held on Xantara, not amidst a galactic melting pot." She escorted him to the door connecting their quarters. Before he could step through, her hand brushed his arm, sending a startling warmth through his body, as if their rings resonated in unison. "One thing you should know," she said, her tone intimate. "Your proposal may have been accidental, but my acceptance was deliberate. Good night, Jackson Rail." The door slid shut, leaving Jackson alone in his new quarters. Her words echoing in his mind like a star's distant pulse. What had she meant? Had she known his compliment was a mistake and chosen to accept it anyway? Why? The questions haunted him, weaving through restless dreams of crystalline spires and galaxy-filled eyes watching from the void. Morning arrived with a gentle chime from the environmental system, its light rising to mimic dawn. Jackson woke disoriented, the opulent diplomatic quarters a stark contrast to his Spartan technician's cabin. His personal device blinked with a message, instructions for the day, including the symbiotic energy, rituals, time, and location. A curt note from Ambassador Lin reminded him of the diplomatic stakes riding on his compliance. After a quick shower and a meal from the suite's automated dispenser, Jackson was fitted with new ceremonial attire, a sleek bodysuit that left his arms and chest partially exposed, its fabric light as a second skin. "The ritual requires direct energy transfer," Attendant Vorin explained, adjusting the material with deft precision. "Skin exposure aids the process." "What is this process?" Jackson asked, frustration creeping into his voice at the vague answers. Vorin's skin flickered with faint amusement. "The bonded pair enters the resonance chamber to form a symbiotic energy circuit, a sacred communion revealing deeper compatibility." The explanation clarified nothing, but a chime signaled it was time to proceed before Jackson could press further. The ritual chamber was unlike any space Jackson had seen on Xantara Prime. Intimate and compact, its walls pulsed with living bioluminescence patterns shifting in response to their presence. The floor, covered in a soft, moss-like substance, felt warm and yielding beneath his bare feet. At the chamber's heart stood Kalis, her slender form accentuated by a matching bodysuit, her skin glowing with a serene blue radiance. Her crystalline appendage shimmered vividly, casting prismatic patterns across the walls like a starfield brought to life. "Welcome, Jackson," she said, her voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre in the chamber's confines. "Are you ready for the communion?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jackson replied, forcing confidence into his voice despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. "Though I still don't know what's going to happen." Kalis extended her hand, her gesture both invitation and command. "It is easier to experience than to explain. Join me in the center." Jackson stepped forward, taking her hand. Her skin was warm, its texture like fine silk, sending a subtle vibration through their contact. The resonance chamber amplifies our bioelectric fields, she said, guiding him to a circular platform that glowed faintly beneath them. It enables a temporary merging of energy patterns. Is it dangerous? Jackson asked, unable to suppress the question. Kalis's skin flickered with amusement. Not unless you fear deeper understanding, she said. The process is intimate, but harmless. At her signal, the chamber's lights dimmed, the bioluminescent walls flaring with vibrant intensity. The platform beneath them hummed softly, the vibration resonating through Jackson's bare feet. Close your eyes, Kalis instructed, her voice gentle yet firm. Focus on our connection. Jackson obeyed, feeling a touch foolish but willing to trust her lead. For a moment only, the platform's hum filled the silence. Then a warmth began to spread from their joined hands, flowing up his arm and through his body, a sensation neither wholly physical nor emotional, but a profound blend of both. It was as if a current wove between them, carrying fragments of something intangible, impressions, emotions, glimpses of essence. Jackson couldn't pin down the sensation, a current weaving through him, carrying fragments of something beyond definition. What you're feeling, Kalis's voice murmured, soft and intimate, resonating not in his ears but within his mind, is the outer edge of my life energy, and I am touching yours. Jackson kept his eyes closed, anchoring himself to the strange tide flowing between them. The connection deepened, bringing flashes of awareness that weren't his own sunlight, filtering through crystalline groves, the weight of leadership's mantle, fleeting moments of solitude beneath a star-strewn sky. He faltered words, failing to capture the experience. Yes, Kalis replied, her voice a gentle echo in his mind, understanding without need for elaboration. The communion unveils glimpses of our essence, not precise thoughts or memories, but the truth of who we are, stripped of words and facades. The energy surged, nearly overwhelming, a torrent that blurred the boundaries of self. Jackson felt as though he were both himself and something greater, a fusion of his humanity and Kalis's alien nature existing at their intersection. Through this ethereal bond, he glimpsed her core, her unyielding strength, the quiet ache of occasional loneliness, her insatiable curiosity about other beings, her fierce devotion to her people. And he knew without words that she was seeing him in turn, his fears, his aspirations, the parts of himself he rarely shared. The communion stretched on perhaps 10 minutes, though time dissolved in its embrace. As it ebbed, Jackson's awareness of his own body returned slowly, like waking from a dream spun of starlight. He opened his eyes to find Kalis watching him, her skin aglow with a rose-gold hue he hadn't seen before, radiant and warm. Her galaxy-filled eyes seemed to pierce through him, brimming with newfound understanding. Jackson began, grasping for words that wouldn't come. Successful, Kalis finished, her voice returning to its melodic cadence, rich with quiet triumph. Our energy patterns aligned in remarkable harmony. Jackson realized their hands were still clasped and gently released hers, a sudden self-consciousness washing over him. The communion had forged an intimacy that transcended touch, as if she'd seen parts of his soul no one else ever had. Is that normal, he asked. That kind of connection, Kalis's crystalline appendage swayed thoughtfully, catching the chamber's light. It is rare, she said, especially across species. The ritual typically yields only surface impressions, not the depth we shared. Her skin shimmered through a cascade of colors before settling into a steady glow. The Verification Council will find these results compelling, she added. As if summoned, in the chamber doors slid open, admitting 3 elders from the previous day's council. Their branched crystalline appendages extended toward Jackson and Kalis in a delicate scanning gesture, their movements deliberate and reverent. The energy signatures are unmistakable, one elder said, his voice tinged with astonishment. Resonance harmony at multiple levels. Unprecedented for a cross-species bond, another agreed, her appendage pulsing faintly. These patterns suggest compatibility far beyond ceremonial necessity. The 3rd elder fixed Jackson with an intense gaze, his eyes glinting like twin nebulae. Curious. Human physiology should not permit such attunement. Yet the evidence is irrefutable. Jackson shifted under their scrutiny, unease prickling his skin. Is that a problem? Not a problem, Kalis interjected swiftly, her tone firm yet diplomatic. Merely unexpected. The verification process continues to affirm our bond. The elders conferred briefly, their appendages brushing in silent communion before the first spoke again. The legal confirmation hearing will proceed tomorrow as scheduled. The bonded pair should prepare for questions regarding the union's legitimacy. As they departed, Jackson turned to Kayla's, concern flickering in his chest. Legal confirmation hearing. That sounds like a trial, a formality, she assured him, though her skin briefly flickered with an unfamiliar hue hinting at her own unease. All verification periods include a legal review to ensure diplomatic and cultural alignment. So we're going to court. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, a gesture born of frustration. What do I say? The truth is, I didn't know what I was doing when I complimented your tail. Kalis's skin darkened slightly, a shadow crossing her features. That would be unwise. The legitimacy of our bond matters, she continued, not just for us, but for the delicate ties between Xantara and the human Conqueror Accord. Jackson sighed, the weight of diplomacy pressing down. So I'm supposed to lie? Think of it as a cultural translation. Kayla suggested, her voice softening like a star's gentle glow. In Xantari custom, your words were a proposal, intent or not. That is our truth. Jackson shook his head, grappling with the divide. Humans value clear consent, open communication. As do the Xantari, she countered, stepping closer, her galaxy eyes locking onto his. But we also see communication beyond words. The communion we shared revealed truths no speech could convey. Did you not feel our resonance that cannot be fabricated? Jackson couldn't deny the profound connection he'd felt, a bioelectric or telepathic thread that had woven them together in ways he couldn't articulate. I felt it, he admitted, his voice quieter now, but I don't know what it means. Kalis's skin shimmered with what seemed like quiet satisfaction. It means the verification process is unfolding as it should, revealing whether this accidental spark might kindle something true. She paused, her gaze softening. Unless you find such a prospect unwelcome. The question caught him off guard. Did he? A day ago he'd have recoiled at the idea, but now, after glimpsing her essence, her strength, her vulnerabilities, he wasn't so sure. I'm still processing, he said honestly. This isn't how humans build relationships. Different, yet perhaps not irreconcilable, Kalis suggested, her tone warm with possibility. For now, rest. The hearing demands clarity of mind. Jackson returned to his quarters, his thoughts a tangle of conflict. The situation was absurd: marriage rituals with an alien diplomat, all because of a flippant compliment. Yet the communion's intensity lingered, undeniable and potent. And Kalis herself, beyond her diplomatic poise and alien form, was someone intricate, compelling a soul who knew isolation as keenly as he did. The ring on his finger pulsed softly, mirroring his heartbeat, a quiet reminder of their bond. He studied the ring, its fluid material, shifting in rhythm, with his pulse a subtle yet constant link. His communicator chimed, signaling a message from Ambassador Lin, summoning him for a private meeting. With a weary sigh, Jackson acknowledged and made his way to her office. Lin awaited her expression, severe, a storm barely contained. The symbiotic energy ritual was a success, she said without preamble. The Xantari delegation is pleased. Jackson nodded cautiously. That's good, right? On one hand, she corrected, her voice sharp. This unexpected bond has generated diplomatic momentum. The Xantari see it as a portent of deeper cooperation. But on the other, her eyes narrowed, pinning him in place. On the other, we're locked into this charade for the full 7 days. Any misstep could unravel the treaty negotiations. It doesn't feel like a charade, Jackson found himself saying, surprising even himself. The ritual, there was something real there. Lin's gaze sharpened, concern flickering in her eyes. Don't lose focus, Technician Rael. What you felt was Xantari biotechnology, not genuine connection. Your duty is to the human conquered. Of course, Jackson replied automatically, though her words left a hollow ache. Was it just technology? The legal confirmation hearing loomed, she continued. You'll face questions about your intentions. Your answers must uphold the narrative of a legitimate union while leaving room for dissolution. So lie convincingly, but keep an exit strategy. Jackson summarized, his tone flat with resignation. Lin's expression hardened. I call it diplomatic nuance, a skill you'd better master fast. The meeting left Jackson more conflicted than ever. Lin's cynicism clashed with the vivid reality of the ritual, yet her warning gnawed at him. What if the connection was engineered? A soft chime at his door broke his thoughts. To his surprise, Kayla stood there, no longer in ceremonial garb, but in a flowing robe, her skin a serene blue with faint rippling patterns. "May I enter?" she asked, her crystalline appendage swaying gently. Jackson stepped aside, suddenly aware of his modest quarters compared to her expansive suite. "Is everything all right?" Kalis asked, her voice laced with concern. I sensed distress. At Jackson's puzzled look, she gestured to his ring. The bonding alloy creates a subtle link, not invasive, just impressions of strong emotions. Jackson glanced at the ring, wary of its power. "So it's a mood monitor, a connection," she corrected gently, her eyes warm. "One that flows both ways." She revealed a matching band on her slender finger, its glow mirroring his. "I didn't notice that before," Jackson admitted. "It forms gradually during the verification period," she explained, a sign of deepening resonance. Jackson sank onto the edge of his bed, gesturing for her to take the room's lone chair. "Ambassador Lin thinks the ritual was just biotechnology," he said, "not a real connection." Kalis's skin darkened briefly, a flicker of displeasure. "She misunderstands. The technology amplifies what exists. It cannot conjure what it isn't there." She leaned forward, her galaxy eyes intense. "What we felt was authentic resonance. Rare. Unexpected. True." "How can you be so certain?" Jackson asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "We're different species with entirely different bodies and cultures. Consciousness transcends those divides." She countered it, her appendage swaying thoughtfully. "The universe is woven from patterns, Jackson. Sometimes they align across the unlikeliest of systems. Our ancient texts call such alignments cosmic gifts," she continued, her voice rich with conviction. "Rare convergences to be cherished." Her certainty, her strange, star-filled eyes eased Jackson's doubts. Whatever was unfolding between them defied simple explanation, but that didn't make it less real. "I'm still wrapping my head around this," he admitted. "Yesterday I was just a tech fixing systems. Today I'm in alien marriage rituals and whatever that communion was." Kalis's skin shimmered with empathy. "Transformation strikes without warning. My own rise to matriarch was much the same, an unexpected shift that reshaped my path." For the next hour, they spoke not of rituals or diplomacy, but of their lives. Kalis shared the weight of her diplomatic training, the solitude of leadership. Jackson spoke of his work on the station, his fascination with alien cultures, his dream of joining the Xenolinguistic Corps. By the time she left, the tension from Lin's meeting had faded, replaced by a spark of curiosity about where this strange journey might lead. The legal confirmation hearing awaited the next morning, held in a formal chamber unlike the organic Zentari spaces. Its stark design echoed a Terran courtroom, with a raised bench for the judges and tiered seating for witnesses. 3 judges presided, one Zentari, one human, and one Andarion, a neutral arbiter. Jackson recognized the human judge, Dr. Alara Martin, a luminary in interspecies law. "This hearing will evaluate the legal standing of the proposed union between Matriarch Kalis of Zentara and technician Jackson Rael of Earth." The Andarian judge declared, their voice crisp through the chamber's translators. "Both parties will be questioned to establish legitimacy and intent." Kalis testified first, her words delivered with surgical precision, affirming the proposal and her commitment to the verification period. When Jackson's turn came, he approached the podium, his pulse quickening under the weight of scrutiny. The Zentari judge spoke first. "Technician Rael, describe in your own words the moment of proposal." Jackson swallowed, recalling Lin's counsel on diplomatic nuance. "I was conducting maintenance in Nexus 7 when I met Matriarch Kalis." He began, choosing his words with care. "I was struck by her presence, especially the unique beauty of her resonance appendage. I voiced my admiration directly." Using the phrase "nice tail," correct, the judge pressed their appendage, swaying slightly. "Yes," Jackson admitted, a flush creeping up his neck. "In human culture, such a compliment can signal special interest." Not entirely false, he reassured himself. Admiration often hinted at attraction, though rarely a marriage proposal. Dr. Martin leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "Were you aware of the Zentari cultural significance of such a remark?" Jackson hesitated, his mind racing to balance truth with Ambassador Lin's call for diplomatic nuance. "I knew the resonance appendage held significance in Zentari culture," he said carefully, his voice steady despite the judge's piercing gazes. "But I didn't grasp the specific protocol my words would trigger." Not entirely a lie, he'd known the appendage mattered, just not how much. Yet you do not dispute the proposal's validity. The Andarian judge inquired, their translated voice sharp with curiosity. I respect Zentari customs, Jackson replied, choosing his words like steps across a minefield. If my comment was a proposal by their traditions, I accept that interpretation. The judges conferred briefly, their murmurs a low hum in the Stark chamber. Dr. Ilara Martin leaned forward, her eyes glinting with scrutiny. Yesterday's energy communion showed extraordinary harmony. How do you explain this given your limited knowledge of their customs? Jackson recalled Kalis's words about patterns aligning across vast divides. I believe some connections transcend cultural boundaries, he said, his voice ringing with quiet conviction. What I felt in the communion was real, whatever sparked it. The Zantari judge's crystalline appendage swayed approvingly, casting prismatic glints across the room. Well said, they intoned. True resonance cannot be fabricated, no matter the circumstances that unveiled it. After a series of probing questions, the judges withdrew to deliberate. Jackson sat beside Kalis in the waiting area, her skin a serene blue, though faint ripples of other hues betrayed her inner thoughts. You spoke with grace, she said softly, her galaxy eyes warm. I tried to be honest without causing trouble. Jackson replied, a wry smile tugging at his lips. It's a tightrope. Indeed, Kalis said, her appendage swaying gently. In diplomacy, we call it contextual honesty, truth, sculpted by circumstance, yet never false. Before Jackson could respond, the judges returned. The Andarian judge spoke for the panel, their voice resonant through the chamber's translators. After reviewing the evidence and testimony, this panel affirms the legal standing of the verification period between matriarch Kalis of Zantara and technician Jackson Rail of Earth. The union is recognized under Zantari custom and human concord protocol. The verification period may proceed as ordained. Jackson exhaled, releasing a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. They'd cleared the legal hurdle, but what lay ahead? The answer came swiftly. The fourth day ushered in the economic consilience session, a high-stakes meeting with delegations from across the galaxy to debate trade implications. Jackson, with no expertise in interstellar economics, felt woefully out of his depth. Your presence is enough, Kalis assured him as they approached the meeting chamber, her tone steady. It symbolizes the unity of our peoples. The session was a labyrinth of complexity far beyond Jackson's expectations. Delegates from a dozen worlds presented intricate proposals, resource swaps, manufacturing rights, and transport corridors, each laced with jargon that dwarfed even his technical vocabulary. Jackson sat silent, struggling to track the rapid exchanges, while Kalis shone beside him, her contributions sharp and masterful. Her command of the subject and diplomatic finesse left him in quiet awe. During a brief recess, a Tyraxis delegate clad in a hissing environmental suit approached. Matriarch, he said, his metallic voice dripping with challenge. Your dilithium extraction quotas are untenable for the Tyraxis collective. Kalis's skin remained a neutral blue, unshaken. The quotas stem from sustainability models crafted by 3 independent research bodies, she replied. They safeguard the resource for all, including Tyraxis. Models can be skewed, the delegate shot back dismissive. Perhaps your Terran consort has swayed you. Earth's resource protectionism is no secret. Jackson felt the delegate's scorn through the suit's opaque visor. Before he could stop himself, he spoke. The models account for Tyraxis extraction methods in their baselines, he said, drawing on a technical report he'd translated months ago. They prioritize your techniques over more invasive ones. The quotas could boost your efficiency in the long run. A stunned silence followed, broken only by rapid clicks from the delegate's suit. You're familiar with the proposal's technical details, he asked, skepticism lingering. I've worked on sustainability reports with the translation team, Jackson said, hoping he hadn't overstepped. The data shows Tyraxis could gain a market edge with these quotas thanks to your superior methods. The delegate's posture softened slightly. That wasn't clear in the briefings. It should have been, Kalis interjected smoothly, her skin flashing a brief gold. My consort has highlighted a strategic advantage for Tyraxis worth exploring. The discussion turned productive, the Tyraxis delegate eventually signaling openness to reconsidering the proposal. As he departed, Kalis turned to Jackson, her galaxy eyes gleaming with fresh appraisal. That was unexpected, she said quietly. You understand extraction technologies? Jackson shook his head, a sheepish grin breaking through. Just communication protocols, but I've translated enough reports to grasp the basics. Hope I didn't overreach. Far from it, she replied, her skin shimmering with approval. You turned tension into opportunity, the heart of diplomacy. The session's remainder flowed more smoothly, Jackson chiming in when topics brushed his peripheral knowledge, earning curious glances from delegates who'd initially dismissed him as ornamental. As they left the chamber, Ambassador Lin intercepted them, her expression a blend of surprise and guarded approval. Technician Rael, she said, your contributions were unexpectedly valuable. Perhaps you've been underutilized. Thank you, Ambassador Jackson replied, caught off guard by the rare praise. The verification process often reveals hidden strengths. Kalis observed, her skin rippling with what seemed like pride. Tomorrow's agro-ring conciliation will offer more chances to collaborate. The conciliation held in the station's sprawling agricultural section was less formal than the economic talks. The agro-rings, a rotating marvel supplying fresh produce, buzzed with demonstrations of cross-species farming technologies. Jackson felt at ease here, the managed ecosystems echoing Earth's recovery zones from his childhood, where technology and nature intertwined. A human agronomist addressed the delegates, explaining the hydroponic adaptation of Xantari crystal moss extends beyond food. Early tests show it absorbs radiation and neutralizes toxins in artificial environments. Kayla stood beside Jackson, her crystalline appendage occasionally brushing his arm as they toured the exhibits. Each touch sent a faint hum through the ring on his finger, a subtle thread linking them. Your people have mastered adaptive agriculture, she remarked, studying genetically modified plants thriving under artificial starlight. Necessity forged innovation, Jackson replied. After Earth's climate collapse, we had to rethink food production entirely. A painful evolution, but vital. Kayla said, Xantara faced similar trials after the crystal blight reshaped our biology. Crisis breeds adaptation. Their exchange was cut short by a sudden uproar nearby. Alarm lights blazed, and the station's AI announced containment breach in Hydrosector 7. All personnel evacuate Sectors 5 through 9. Biohazard protocols engaged. Delegates hurried toward exits, but Jackson spotted workers struggling with containment gear in the affected sector. Without thinking, he moved toward them, Kalis closed behind. What's happening? He asked a young technician. Lyra, her hydroponics coveralls streaked with grime. Pressure spike in the irrigation system, she said, frantic. The seals are failing. If the experimental algae hits the main water supply, it'll contaminate the entire ring. Jackson assessed the system, its structure, akin to the communication networks he knew, just channeling water instead of data. Isolate the affected sections first, he said, moving to a control panel. It's like cutting off a network during a viral breach. Lyra hesitated, uncertain. That's not protocol. He's right, an older supervisor, Myra cut in, her insignia gleaming. Standard protocol assumes slow failure, not a catastrophic breach. Isolate now. Together they shut down critical junctions, Jackson leveraging his knowledge of station systems, while Kalis's diplomatic clout secured emergency authorizations, bypassing bureaucratic delays. When security arrived to enforce evacuation, Kalis's matriarch status ensured they could stay and assist. Her crystalline appendage pulsed with calming light, soothing the frazzled workers. In 20 minutes, they'd isolated the contaminated sections. The AI confirmed containment, initiating restoration protocols. Myra approached, wiping sweat from her brow. Thank you both, she said. Your quick thinking averted a station-wide disaster. Just doing what needed doing, Jackson said modestly. Impressive, nonetheless, a new voice chimed. A Jalen delegate, Gelrin, stood nearby, his translucent exoskeleton glinting under the agro-ring's sun lamps. A technician and a diplomat, untrained in agriculture, yet you operated as a seamless unit. Kalis's skin shifted to a diplomatic blue. Adaptability is the cornerstone of cooperation, Delegate Gelrin, she said. Indeed, Gelrin replied, his compound eyes fixed on Jackson. Your consort's practical skills complement your diplomatic prowess. Matriarch, a fortunate pairing. As they rejoined the delegates, Jackson sensed a shift in their perception. Initial curiosity about their cross-species bond had deepened into respect, their teamwork in the crisis resonating more than any ritual. That evening, sharing the meal in Kalis's quarters, Jackson felt a rare ease settle over him, the day's triumphs forging a connection beyond their forced circumstances. You were remarkable today, Kalis said, her skin glowing with a warm golden hue in the dim light. Few would act so decisively in a crisis outside their expertise. Jackson shrugged, a smile tugging at his lips. Just problem solving. The logic's the same, data flows or water systems. Perhaps Kayla said, her appendage swaying thoughtfully, but not all can bridge such domains. It's a trait we Xantari call perspective transcendence. On Earth, we'd say thinking outside the box, Jackson replied, grinning. An apt phrase, Kayla said, her galaxy eyes studying him with growing intensity. Tomorrow's ritual will differ from the others, more revealing. More revealing, Kayla said, her skin flickering through a kaleidoscope of colors before settling into a calm blue. The mutual intention ritual, Jackson asked, recalling the cryptic outline he'd been given. What does it entail? It is the most intimate of our verification rites, she explained, her voice soft yet weighted with meaning. While the energy communion offered glimpses of our essence, this ritual demands unfiltered truth, your true feelings and motivations about our bond. Jackson's stomach tightened, a flutter of apprehension rising. So no more diplomatic nuance, none. Kalis confirmed, her galaxy eyes steady. Only truth. It comes late in the verification period to allow genuine understanding to take root. The weight of her words settled over Jackson like a gravity shift. After days of weaving truth with diplomacy, tomorrow would strip away all pretense, forcing him to voice emotions he was only beginning to unravel. What if? He began hesitating. My feelings are complicated, not fully committed but not detached either. Kalis's crystalline appendage swayed gently, catching the starlight in prismatic arcs. Complexity is not deception, she said. The field seeks honesty, not certainty. She paused, her skin rippling with a rare vulnerability. I too harbor complex feelings about this. Jackson blinked, surprised. You do? Of course, she said, her voice softer, almost confiding. This began unexpectedly for us both. I chose to accept your unintended proposal, she continued, but I could not foresee how this process would unfold or what true connection might emerge. For the first time, Jackson saw Kalis not as a poised matriarch, but as someone navigating the same uncharted stars. He was, her composure masking uncertainty. Why did you accept? He asked abruptly. You knew I didn't understand the implications. You could have clarified the misunderstanding. Kalis fell silent, her skin cycling through subtle hues of blue and violet, as if reflecting an inner storm. When she spoke, her voice was quieter, more intimate. For 7 cycles I have served as matriarch, forging treaties, averting wars, advancing Xantera's cause across the galaxy. But always as the matriarch, never as Kalis. Her galaxy-filled eyes met his, unguarded. When you spoke those words, nice tale, with genuine admiration, free of diplomatic calculation, I acted on impulse. To accept a proposal from a random human technician, Jackson said, incredulity lacing his voice. To embrace possibility, she corrected her appendage, swaying pensively. Our ancient texts speak of unforeseen paths that open only when we step beyond rigid boundaries. I wanted to explore if such a path existed for me. Her admission struck a chord in Jackson, revealing a spark of human-like yearning beneath her alien exterior, a longing to break free from the weight of duty and chase the unknown. I'm glad you did, Jackson found himself saying, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Whatever comes next these days, with you have been extraordinary. Kalis's skin shimmered with a warm glow and the ring on his finger pulsed in sync, a silent echo of their bond. Whatever tomorrow's ritual held tonight, they'd forged a step toward true connection. The mutual intention ritual unfolded in a small, austere chamber deep within the Xantari section of Xantara Prime. Unlike the ornate ceremonial halls, this room was stark, its matte white walls absorbing sound with only 2 simple chairs facing each other at its heart. Jackson and Kalis entered separately, each guided by an attendant who draped them in white meditation robes, their only adornments, the glowing rings that seemed to burn brighter in the chamber's diffused light. The attendants withdrew, leaving them alone. Kalis gestured to the chairs, and they sat, knees nearly brushing in the intimate space. The resonance field is active, she said, her voice hushed, almost reverent. It's calibrated to our bioelectric patterns. Jackson nodded, sensing a subtle vibration in the air, akin to the energy communion, but sharper, more insistent. How does it work? He asked, half curious, half stalling, the inevitable moment of truth. It aligns with our nervous systems, Kalis explained patiently. Any deception creates a discordant pattern felt by both as a profound discomfort until truth restores balance. So we'll know if either of us lies, Jackson said. Yes, she replied, her skin flickering with faint patterns that hinted at nervousness beneath her calm. The ritual begins with formal questions, then opens to dialogue. Are you ready? Jackson took a deep breath, steeling himself. As ready as I'll ever be. Kalis nodded and began her tone formal, yet resonant. I ask you, Jackson Rail of Earth, what was your true intention when you spoke the words that sparked our bond? The resonance field tightened around Jackson, its pressure urging truth. My true intention, he said carefully, was simply to pay you a compliment. I found your crystalline appendage beautiful and spoke without knowing the cultural weight. The field eased, affirming his honesty. Kalis's skin flickered briefly as if confirming what she'd suspected. I ask you, Jackson Rael of Earth, what are your intentions now, 5 days into our verification period? This question cut deeper. Jackson paused, sifting through the tangle of his emotions. The field pulsed expectant, but not yet uncomfortable. My intentions are evolving, he said at last. What started as diplomatic necessity has become something I cherish for its own sake. I'm drawn to you not just as a matriarch or ally, but as Kalis. I want to explore what connection we might share, whatever form it takes. The words surprised him, yet the field remained serene, confirming their truth. Kalis's skin glowed with a rose-gold hue he'd come to associate with joy. Final question, she said, her voice softer, almost tender. If the verification period confirms compatibility, would you willingly continue our bond? The hardest question yet. Jackson closed his eyes briefly, searching his heart. When he opened them, he met her galaxy-filled gaze. Yes, he said simply. Not for diplomacy or obligation, but because these days have shown me possibilities I never dreamed of. I'd choose to continue if you choose it freely too. The resonance field hummed in harmony, and Kailis's skin flared with brilliant gold before settling into intricate swirls of rose gold and deep violet pulsing in rhythm with his ring. Now I answer, she said, her voice thick with emotion. My true intention in accepting your unintended proposal was to chase a path free of diplomatic constraints, a chance for connection rooted in genuine admiration, not strategy. The field remained steady, echoing her honesty. My intentions now have grown beyond curiosity, she continued. I've discovered in you qualities that resonate with my deepest self, adaptability, courage, honesty, a capacity for growth that transcends our world's boundaries. I cherish our bond for its authenticity, not its diplomatic value. Her skin shimmered with vulnerability more expressive than Jackson had ever seen. And if compatibility is confirmed, she concluded, her eyes holding his with unwavering resolve, I would choose to continue our bond freely as Kalis and Jackson, not matriarch and technician. The resonance field thrummed with affirmation, and Jackson felt a surge of emotion as if their rings channeled a shared current. What began as a cultural misstep had blossomed into something profound, a connection defining their disparate origins. With the formal ritual complete, they lingered in the chamber for another hour, speaking openly of their past, 5 days, their hopes, fears, and the challenges of a cross-species bond. The field's subtle presence ensured their honesty, fading gradually as their words flowed. When they emerged, both felt transformed, the artificial bond replaced by mutual choice and raw truth. Whatever the final 2 days held, they now moved forward with clarity of each other's intentions. The change was evident to others as they attended diplomatic functions the next day. Delegates and station staff noted their newfound synchronicity, a natural ease replacing the stiff formality of earlier days. Jackson found himself drawn into discussions once beyond his reach, his insights sought on matters far from his technical expertise. Even Ambassador Lin seemed to reconsider her stance. Whatever sparked this arrangement, she told Jackson in a brief private meeting, it's yielding unexpected dividends. The Xantari delegation has softened on key negotiation points. I don't think Kalis is adjusting her stance for diplomacy, Jackson said, a protective edge in his voice. She's responding to new perspectives, not leveraging our bond. Lin raised an eyebrow, skeptical yet intrigued. Perhaps, but the outcomes benefit us regardless of motive. She paused, studying him. You've changed, Technician Rael. There's a confidence in you that wasn't there before. Jackson couldn't deny it. The verification rituals, especially the truth-telling, had unearthed strengths he'd never fully embraced. More than that, seeing himself through Kalis's eyes had illuminated qualities he'd undervalued. The 6th day brought no formal rituals, but a series of diplomatic events where Jackson and Kalis operated as a seamless unit. Her diplomatic finesse paired with his practical problem-solving created a partnership that proved remarkably effective across contexts. That evening, however, a crisis loomed. During a routine inspection of the aggro ring, security detected sabotage in the water filtration system, the same system they'd saved during the earlier breach. Analysis suggests the initial incident was deliberate, the security chief explained in an urgent briefing. Now we found further tampering that could trigger catastrophic failure if activated. Jackson and Kalis exchanged worried glances, their shared resolve unspoken but palpable. Despite their role in the prior aggro ring incident, neither Jackson nor Kalis held security clearance for such sensitive matters. Yet their presence at the briefing was undeniable, their unique perspective demanded. "Do you have suspects?" Kalis asked, her diplomatic poise, unshaken though the gravity of the situation shimmered faintly in her rose-gold skin. "Several possibilities," the security chief replied, his tone cautious as a soldier navigating a battlefield. "But evidence remains elusive. The sabotage blends biological and technological methods, suggesting multiple actors." Jackson's mind raced through the delegations they'd encountered over the past days. The timing aligns with the trade negotiations, he observed, his voice steady. Could someone be targeting specific agreements? The chief nodded, his eyes narrowing. "That's our theory. Several upcoming treaties involve agricultural resources and technologies deals that could shift the sector's power balance." The Tyraxis delegate was notably vocal about resource allocations. Kalis noted her crystalline appendage swaying thoughtfully, catching the briefing room's light in prismatic arcs. And Delegate Gelrin raised concerns too. Jackson added, though their issues differed. The chief's gaze sharpened, locking onto them with keen interest. "So, your interactions with both delegations during the verification rituals give you a unique vantage point. We could leverage that." What followed was an intense strategy session, Jackson and Kalis pooling their observations from diplomatic events. Their positions straddling ceremonial and practical roles granted them insights beyond the reach of security teams. The Jalen mentioned unusual radiation patterns during the aggro ring conciliation, Jackson recalled, his voice tinged with hindsight. "I thought it was mere technical curiosity then, but now it feels significant." And the Tyraxis delegate's environmental suit emitted odd frequencies during our economic session. Kalis added, her skin flickering with focus. "My resonance appendage detected signals unlike their standard life support systems. Working in tandem with the security team, they pieced together a pattern of suspicious actions, unmasking a collaborative sabotage plot, not by entire delegations, but by rogue individuals within multiple groups poised to profit from derailing the agricultural treaties. The crisis was thwarted, the culprits apprehended, and Zantara Prime resumed normal operations with minimal disruption to its diplomatic missions. Over the grueling 20-hour ordeal, Jackson and Kalis operated as a seamless unit, their newfound trust forging an efficiency that impressed even the station's seasoned security veterans. Exhausted, they returned to Kalis's suite, collapsing into seats before the vast viewport where stars glittered like promises against the void. Yet amidst the fatigue, a quiet triumph lingered, a deepened bond born of shared purpose. "Tomorrow is the final day of the verification period," Kalis said softly, her skin glowing a gentle blue in the dim light. "The dissolution ceremony is set for midday." The words hung heavy, the ritual that could end their temporary bond if either chose to walk away. After all they'd shared, the thought felt hollow, like a star stripped of its light. "Is that what you want?" Jackson asked, though their truth-telling ritual had already bared her heart. Kalis's appendage swayed gently, reflecting starlight. "The ceremony is required regardless of our desires. It marks the verification's end." She turned to him, her galaxy-filled eyes mirroring the cosmos beyond. "But no, that is not what I want." Jackson reached for her hand, the familiar hum of their matched rings resonating between them. "Nor what I want," he said, his voice steady with conviction. "Then we are aligned," Kalis replied, her skin shimmering with rose-gold delight. "Instead of dissolution, we may request the continuation ceremony, a formal alliance recognized across our worlds. A real marriage," Jackson clarified, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "By both our cultures' terms, yes," she said, her appendage brushing his arm, sending a warm vibration through their connection. "Though such cross-species unions are rare and will draw scrutiny," she added. Jackson considered this, his mind tracing their journey from a flippant compliment to rituals that had woven their lives together. The idea of returning to his old life tinkering with communication systems in solitude felt like a betrayal of the meaning they'd found. "I'm willing to face the attention if you are," he said. "What we've built is worth preserving in whatever form it takes." Kalis's skin flared brighter, a radiant affirmation. "Then it is decided. We will request a continuation ceremony." The final day dawned not with closure but with vibrant anticipation, the station abuzz with whispers of their choice to forge a lasting bond. Word of their intent had spread, igniting speculation among the diplomatic corps and station crew. The continuation ceremony, simpler than Jackson had expected, unfolded in the same grand chamber where their journey began 7 days prior. It required a formal declaration before witnesses from both worlds. The elder Zentari, his triple-branched appendage gleaming with age, presided once more. The verification period concludes, he announced, his voice resonating through the gathered assembly. The bonded pair must declare their intent. Jackson and Kalis stepped forward in unison, defying the traditional protocol of dissolution. Kalis spoke first. "I, Matriarch Kalis of Xantara, choose to continue the bond with Jackson Rael of Earth. What began in unforeseen circumstances has revealed true resonance. I claim this union by choice with full intention." Her skin blazed with brilliant gold, her crystalline appendage refracting light in dazzling patterns across the chamber. The Zentari delegates murmured approval, their own skins shifting in harmony. Jackson drew a deep breath, his heart steady. "I, Jackson Rael of Earth, choose to continue the bond with Matriarch Kalis of Xantara," he said, his voice clear. "Our connection transcends cultural divides and ceremonial bounds. I claim this union freely with purpose." His ring pulsed warmly, its glow mirrored by Kalis's, a silent testament to their bond. The elder extended his branched appendage, its crystals brushing them in blessing. "The verification is complete. The bond is affirmed," the elder proclaimed. "May your united paths bring harmony to your peoples and wisdom to your journey." He turned to the witnesses. "This union is recognized under the Galactic Concord Protocols and the Xantari Codes of Harmony." Ambassador Lynn stepped forward, her expression a careful mask, though Jackson caught a glint of genuine approval. "The human Concord acknowledges this union and grants diplomatic recognition. Technician Rael will be reassigned to duties befitting his new status. Procedural tasks followed: documents to file, credentials to update, quarters to merge, but they paled against the weight of their choice. What began with an accidental compliment had forged a deliberate commitment, bridging species, cultures, and conventions. Later, in their shared quarters, they stood before the viewport, the endless stars stretching beyond Xantara Prime's dome. Kalis's appendage brushed Jackson's arm, a now familiar gesture of affection, sending a gentle hum through their rings. "7 days ago, you said my tail was nice," she remarked, her skin shimmering with amusement. A simple remark that sparked an extraordinary path. Jackson smiled, taking her hand, the resonance between their rings, a quiet pulse of connection. "The best journeys start with the smallest steps." Her galaxy eyes met his, reflecting the stars beyond. "And where does our journey lead now?" "I don't know exactly," Jackson admitted, his voice warm with possibility, "but I'm eager to discover it together." Kalis's skin glowed with warm approval, her crystalline appendage catching the starlight, casting dancing patterns across their shared space, a fitting emblem of the harmony they'd found across their world's vast divide. Together, she echoed the word heavy with promise and hope. "That is more than enough."